authenticity starts with really sharing one story, because everybody has a unique story.
Hey guys, thanks for listening today. My name is Kagan with BriteBee, where insurance quotes don't sting. And today on The Person Behind the Professional, we are glad to have on Branden Weber. Branden started Alpha Insurance Group in order to really humanize insurance after leaving a long and successful career in corporate America. He has a passion for matching his clients with the insurance provider that is right for them and providing a world-class insurance experience. Thanks for being on with us, Branden.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Well, hey, let's talk a little bit about your background and your agency's background. Tell us just a little bit more.
Sure. So my background is, kind of varied, but I think all things kind of culminate to get me to this point. So I spent time in corporate America. I worked for companies like 3M right out of college, and where I actually sold sandpaper and tape. So yeah,
sandpaper and tape.
Sandpaper and tape.
That's exciting.
Oh my goodness.
It's got to be
riveting. But and I did so in Houston, Texas. So if you've ever been at a pipe manufacturing yard in Houston, Texas, in the dead of summer, where you have to go outside to cool off, it makes you evaluate some career choices. So,
absolutely.
So that being said, I took my talents back home to California, and I'd saved a bunch of money and said, you know what, I think I want to work in professional sports. So I did that. I worked for the Los Angeles Clippers. Very low-level positions, but I made a lot of high-level connections. And as a diehard Lakers fan, it was gut-wrenching. But it taught me.
Yeah, I bet.
It taught me one thing, that any organization can be successful, or whatever you're doing, you can be successful at it if you really, really make an honest attempt. So I left that, worked for a major insurance company, Fortune 100. Opened up offices, worked with the product team, did a number of different things. And, I just had a thought one day. I said, you know what, this insurance experience can be different. There's some things that I feel like I can bring to the table that may enhance this experience. So why don't I put my money where my mouth is? So that's what I did. I started Alpha Insurance with, little to, I hadn't sold. I was in management and sales management, which would be considered an unnatural step to some, but it was natural to me. I'd worked with a number of phenomenal agents and received some really good training and made some lifelong friends, and just wanted something different and wanted to leave that legacy for my children, but to really be engaged and plant myself within the community that I'm in.
Man, that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about the corporate America and learning from that, and what lessons you learned that has truly helped you grow your agency and serve your clients better.
Oh, absolutely. So the thing about a corporate, when you get with, one of these top 5 captive carriers, you really respect the billion-dollar infrastructure. So one of the things initially that I took away is that everything has a system and a process, and you can create those processes within a small business, so to speak, to kind of replicate that experience. So I always look at it. One of the major things I learned is that, time kills deals, but people fundamentally want you to have, want you to be knowledgeable, want the results quick, and want it to be easy. That doesn't change no matter the channel that they receive their insurance from.
Yeah.
So when I thought about my agency, I thought about how do I build that to make it an easy process, relationship, but still have some transactional elements, but make it automated such that anybody could use it. They can go online and just say, hey, look, let me just go on and make a vehicle change. So that's one of the things that I respected from my time in corporate America. And also I learned everything has a value. Everything has a dollar amount. Customer acquisition cost, what is my true outflow? So I think from a back end standpoint, that allowed me to really build a model that is really sustainable, more so than not having that experience.
So we know that it's not just all about you building that, but also team. So tell us a little bit about your team as well.
Sure. So my team is one of individuals that I've had relationships with or contact with for a while. So I knew a number of, they're phenomenal. As they say, teamwork makes the dream work. I wouldn't be able to accomplish anything. So I have dedicated marketers. I have some individuals with computer technical background, and then hardcore top sales experience that really opened the doors for us to have conversations with individuals that typically we wouldn't have a conversation with. And when I mean that, I mean strictly from an industry perspective. We go about it differently. So, I mean, my team is phenomenal.
That's awesome. What struggles did you experience in changing over from the corporate America to what you do now?
I think one of the main struggles was I would say the first piece, having managed and having a staff and having administrative professionals. The first time I had to make flight arrangements, I was like, hey, we have to make flight arrangements. Somebody should make those arrangements. And there was nobody there to make the arrangements but myself. So that was a humbling experience. Just really, the struggle was really the time. Now, instead of wearing one hat, I have to wear several hats and shoes and gloves and any other apparel that's going to help the business succeed. So
Yeah.
I would say that was one of the struggles, is really getting a handle on how do I, become marketer in chief, but also realize that with no new policies, no sales, there's no revenue. So
I know.
that's a delicate balance.
Yeah, that's kind of a scary thing, right?
Absolutely.
So did you experience any opposition from friends or family? Did anyone say, man, you're crazy?
No, I think my friends and family were supportive, but and I didn't mention it to a lot of friends and family. Of course, my wife knew, but a really, really close, tight knit circle. We just kind of started and launched and developed really, really good relationships outside of those people that you traditionally start with. And I think what that did was allow me to gain credibility and have them, say they're not joining in the startup phase. They're coming along for the ride on, what is a successful wave. So
yeah, definitely.
No opposition. I mean, they've been really, really supportive, and I'm thankful for that. And if they haven't, at least I haven't heard of it. So they're good at keeping it covered up.
That's good. It's always nice when you don't hear the opposition. So
right.
That is great. Well, let's talk about family for a second. There's a great picture of you and your family on your website.
So I think one of the things that I was intentional about doing is really evaluating why am I doing this. And one of the things was I saw the industry, and most people think of it as a dinosaur of an industry, but I just saw it as one that can evolve, and I want to be in the mix once it evolves. And my family is at the core of the driving force. So those days where I may not want to, go and look for a new business and kind of go through the daily routine, they keep me motivated. So I just thought it was important to humanize the experience. Oftentimes it's a phone call, it's a computer, it's a policy, and insurance is ambiguous. It's a piece of paper with a promise. And I always say you don't need it. You don't really know you have to have it. You don't really know what it does. And when you need it, you need it. So I wanted to try to humanize that as much as possible and just convey, hey, I'm a person just like you. These are the people that I do it for, and these are the things that I want to protect. Hopefully we can find some common ground and protect those things together.
How do you manage and find work-life balance? I mean, what have you seen that works for you?
Well, I've seen one of the things that work. One is I eliminated the word balance. I look at it as a work-life blend, because there's going to be some times where blend, yeah, and it's just sometimes where there is no balance. There's some days and nights where I'm going to have to put in that sweat equity and make sure things are accomplished, and then there's some times where there's some flexibility where I can be at a lunch with my daughter, or attend a practice, or just take care of some of the things that need to be taken care of throughout the day, because I've built that into that calendar. So I always look at it more of a blend. It's always going to be out of balance. It's going to be working too much, not with the family, not getting stuff done. So how can I really blend those things together? And I try to incorporate my family. And if I have an event, a community event or an on-site or something, I bring them with me. Here's a t-shirt. Learn how to go and shake hands and talk to people, and make sure that you understand what's going on. Now, it's within the child labor laws. I give them breaks, and
I know, right? Give them breaks.
So yes, so they have their breaks, and they're well fed,
really
and their time is no more limited to 30 minutes.
Yeah, That is great. Well, I had just taken my boys over to see an agent that BriteBee's been serving, and she had written a book, and uh, took them over and tried to walk through with them beforehand, like, hey, this is how you're going to speak, and if she asks your name, make sure you say what your name is, and all of these things, and then we get there, and she's got candy, and then everything went. It went bad. It was like, oh, she's got
Absolutely.
candy now, so no one cares about anything else. So
A great equalizer, sugar.
that's right. That's right. Well, that's phenomenal, and it's good to see you incorporating your family in that. And I think the blend is. I think I'm going to start using that, because you're right, especially with entrepreneurs and people who have businesses. There's not a lot of balance in that,
No,
and it pulls one way, and then another it pulls the other way. And so I think a
absolutely.
blend. I think that's a good way. I'm gonna talk to my wife about that too. So you'll back me up on that one, right?
Yeah, you got it. I'll back you up. I'm always on the man's side.
That's awesome. Well, you mentioned to us that you're passionate about your community as well. What drives this passion?
Well, I think one of the things that drives it is my upbringing. I'm originally from Compton, California, and immediately people have a thought of what that is. And just like I aim to change what the perception of insurance is, I try to do the same with articulating my background. So having, been in, and I guess you would consider an inner city, I realize the importance of small business and their impact on the community. For example, and it may seem kind of cliche, but a local entertainer really came back. The park that was around the corner from a neighborhood, he was one of the local entertainers, and the first thing he did was resurface the courts, the basketball courts, and really change the environment. And what that made me think of is, okay, here's a person that has resources, and they don't really have to do this. And then I started looking around, were it not for the small business locations, there would be none of the resources that are needed. So really, in addition to being a business, it was more of a service, and you start to develop those relationships, and you start to have local people that you can kind of look to and say, oh, okay, that's this gentleman. He owns this record store. He owns this barbershop, and for example, Underworld Barbershop. They had a record store and a barbershop right next to each other, and that was my first entree into going to get the favorite magazine or new album. It's just always right there. And were those resources not there, where will we go? We would have to go to another community. So just from an economic standpoint, I realized that impact and what that freedom allowed people to do for their particular community. So it's just been ingrained in me, and it's something that that I want to replicate.
So you said that you grew up in the inner city, correct?
Hmm. Yeah,
So tell us
yeah,
tell us a
that's what
little
most
bit
people
about
call it.
what that's actually like, because I did not grow up in that environment. I mean, what was that like? Paint a picture for us.
So I would say this: my picture may be starkly different from, in stark contrast from what's typically portrayed. I grew up with the advantage of having four of my best friends in consecutive houses. The street that I grew up on was all second generation families, and it literally was 26 other children within 5 years of each other. So you're talking about
Wow.
fun and always having people to play with and things to do. I mean, literally, it's every sport you can think of. Everything you can imagine, from summer trips to going swimming and playing in the local parks. Just everything you can imagine a typical childhood experience would be. But then surrounded by that is everything you would be see portrayed in the movies about Compton. So I just think it was that delicate, and I go back to blend of, here is my thought process, here's my upbringing, but it's so similar to anyone's other story with elements that may be dissimilar around us.
Sure. So would there be any negatives towards you being in that type of environment? But from what I hear, you had more people support wise than most people ever do.
Exactly. I think there's always negatives, but I think any environment, I mean, you take
You're
a
right.
predominantly suburban environment, it can be a negative that I may not see kids outside. I mean, it's not that camaraderie that you may typically see. So yeah, there's inherent negatives that can be within any community. But I think one thing that made it unique is really people and relationships, and that kind of spills over to the insurance sides and makes me want to continue that service. But yeah, I mean, there's negatives to any environment, and the environment was rife with temptation, but good upbringing, good parents, and just having that vision and that goal and seeing way a lot more positive than the negative really, made those, those potential hazards less likely.
Yeah, and temptation, temptation's there, but temptation is everywhere, right?
Absolutely.
And just because it may not be in one way, in this community, it may be completely different. I'll tell you, I didn't have 26 people to play with, nor 26 people. I mean, I think I had my sister to play with. I would look out and there would be almost no one outside playing or anything. So I think that's really neat to have that camaraderie.
Absolutely.
With
Absolutely.
everyone.
Literal block party every day in the summer.
Yeah, right?
Loads of fun.
I mean, that would be so great, honestly. It would honestly be so great to have that now and to think about our kids being able to have that. But unfortunately, I just don't think that's in many places anymore.
Absolutely.
So you celebrate life lessons. You had mentioned something about celebrating success and being authentic with life lessons.
So I think that in the age of Bezos with Amazon and Mark Zuckerberg, and looking at those stories that are seemingly overnight success, I think that from any book, the amount of time that has to be put in behind the scenes, I think that's not a story that's not really brought to light as well as it could be. So I mean that authenticity starts with really sharing one story, because everybody has a unique story, and there are going to be setbacks and challenging times and things. So it's awesome to celebrate the success and say, this company like an Airbnb is valued at $20 billion, but let's learn a little bit more about, when you were letting strangers stay in your home for a conference. And what was that thought process? What was that feeling about? And I just think that in society, there's not enough of those stories captured, because it's all about, the end result. But I think the journey is much more important than a destination.
So what about companies and products that you offer at your agency?
Sure. So I work with companies like Safeco, Travelers, Nationwide, your large carriers, and then some niche carriers, and your Chubb, your Pure, offer auto, home, life, commercial. Basically, I always look at it as, if it can be insured, we can find a way to do it. So
yeah. So one thing we always like to do at the very end is give 5 key takeaways from you that our listeners can learn from and take away and benefit from. What would those be?
One of the things that would come to mind immediately would be, your why has to be bigger than your how. And I think that oftentimes there's the right modals will carry you through the how part of it. It's just, what they say, necessity is the greatest feeder of innovation. So I always look at it that way. I think kind of secondly, I would think, know who you are, but more importantly, know who you're not. And to use a colloquial term, keep it 100. Like, whatever you're good at, be that. And if it's an area where you need development, be honest about that. Be intellectually honest about that. But whatever your agency is great at, be great at that. And whatever that you're not good at, be honest with that, and either outsource or look at other ways to become better at that. Your environment has to match your goals. And here's what I mean by that. I think, at the beginning of the year, a lot of people start with, hey, when you lose X amount of pounds, and, as they say, wait till March and the gym will be empty.
Right.
But what does that environment look like? If I say that I'm on a strict diet and I'm not longer eating meat, going to a barbecue restaurant probably isn't the best thing for me.
Right.
So I think of that as, let me just make sure that, if I say that I want to assimilate with, associated with successful people, that I'm doing so, and that I'm in that environment to keep learning. Alliances and partnerships would be one, I think, would be a key takeaway. And what I mean by that is I look at stories like, Microsoft and Apple, and you read about how Bill Gates and Steve Jobs had, some adversarial, they had some tensions throughout the years, but in order to get Apple to where it is now, Bill Gates was one of the largest investors. So those alliances and those partnerships, where they make sense, can be the difference. I don't view my competition as other agents. My competition is the internet. My competition is, these billion-dollar corporations that have the resources and can automate a number of processes that I can't. So I just try to form those partnerships where necessary. And then lastly, I use a phrase that I received from my pastor, which is incessant tinkering. I'm always trying to improve, always trying to get better, and stress test the process and make sure that it's something that, if I'm putting myself in the role of an end user, a policy holder, that it's something that I can really stand behind. So it's constant tinkering.
That's fantastic. Well, I feel like BriteBee is constantly tinkering, so I'm going to use that one all the time. And
no problem. You're welcome.
We really appreciate you being on today, and I'm really looking forward to getting to know you better, and especially our BriteBee team getting to know you better as well, and maybe brainstorming a little bit on how we can conquer these obstacles that we face as insurance professionals. So really appreciate it, Branden. Now tell us the last thing is, how do they get in contact with you? What are the best ways to reach out to you?
So I try to be everywhere. Best way to reach out to me is call the office. If someone doesn't answer, right away, then we're either on an appointment, and we'll definitely get back to you. But office phone. Can I get my number?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah. So it's 214-306-0982. 214-306-0982. One of the other ways that we connect is Facebook Messenger. We're available to take those calls and those requests. So Facebook Messenger, Instagram, we're facebook.com/myalphainsurance, and on Instagram, myalphaelite on Instagram. So any one of those platforms, we're easy to reach.
Well, we want to remind everyone to make sure and subscribe and give a review on what you thought about this conversation with Branden. And also, don't forget that if you are looking for insurance quotes that don't sting, check out BriteBee.com, click Get a Quote, and then type in Branden Weber's name, and you will find him there. Guys, we really appreciate you listening today, and we will see you next time.